light on, so it doesn't look like I'm sitting here in the shadows. I guess I kind of am, but yeah, whatever. It's still light outside. It's still hot. But anyway, um, so we're back to Ask Me Anything, which I did Monday. Took a hiatus Tuesday, and now I'm back. Um, so my Ask Me Anything format is back, and means you can ask me random questions as long as they're family friendly. Um, but if things get out of control, I will use my moderation tools to keep things in check. But generally, ask me anything is when you can just ask me questions, I respond in real time, and that's how we roll. You know, that's how we roll. And I might have to put on my reading glasses because people will be having all sorts of weird usernames that I can't pronounce without squinting at the screen. So I think I'm gonna get one of those little live streaming kits. Funny thing is, I was at the museum several days ago, and they sell a they sell a live streaming kit, which is basically a little like a little stand with lights that you place your phone onto as you're streaming. I was like, that's kind of nifty. But I don't know. But the thing about that is, I wanted to. I eventually want to do PC live stream, so I would think if I'm doing it from the PC, the live streaming kit would be kind of useless. The live streaming kit they had in mind is just for mobile streamers, like what I'm doing now, mobile streaming. Drink some water. But again, so hello to everyone. This is Ask Me Anything Wednesday, which means you can ask me questions like whatever random questions, as long as they're family friendly. Uh, Shimwa Hassan 2265 says hello, brother. What's up? But yeah, so guys, this is my Ask Me Anything format, so you guys can ask me questions. Just make sure they have family friendly. That's not to say I can answer everything, but um, you said, "Do I have a family today?" What do you mean today? Yeah, yes, I have a family. I'm not sure what you mean by today. Do you mean I don't know if you meant did I spend time with them? Is that what you meant? I mean, my wife is currently on vacation. Um, Sub Sapan Ali dash T 75U says hi. What's up? I'm gonna put on my glasses. Yep, yep, yep. Yes, that makes it easier. Get this out the way. What's your favorite food? Um, it's usually a toss up like General So chicken or crispy buffalo wings. Kind of a toss up between them. Not the boneless ones, the actual wing, like the actual like wing parts, not the boneless wings. Although the boneless wings are delicious too, but I like the traditional. Well, the traditional buffalo wings, but the crispy kind, not the ones that's more like they're like fried and then it's like sautéed with sauce afterwards. But either way, I'll eat buffalo wings. But my favorite way is when they're like crispy. But if not, then General Soul chicken. Which I could go for. Well, I would say I could go for it right now, but it's too hot. I actually don't want it right now. When it gets hot, I kind of lose my appetite, especially for like fried, greasy foods. Although I actually do need fried, greasy foods because it helps cushion my joints. Shamar says nice, sounds tasty. I like buffalo wings with hot sweet sauce. Hot sweet sauce? Yeah, that's okay. You have the different buffalo wing restaurants that offer you a bevy of different types of sauces. You can get like the traditional buffalo wing sauce. You can get the barbecue. Um, I guess you can get like the tangy sweet sauce. You can get the red hot fire type sauce and everything in between. I usually go for like the hottest or second the hottest one, just because I can take it. I remember Hooters ate the hottest wings, and they weren't even that hot to me. I'm like, these are good. The waitress just looked at me. Luckily, I went to Hooters when they still actually had like pretty women working there before people got offended by stuff like that. So like that was like 10 years ago. Thank you, Ricky Bobby, for the super gift. Appreciate that. Shinmore says, "Are you familiar with trading? Trading what? Are you talking about stock trading, card trading games? Like we talking about Pokemon and stuff like that? I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by trading. If you're asking me about stuff like forex and all that, I don't do that scammy stuff. No, I don't do crypto and no, I don't do any of all of that's a bunch of scams. Crypto is a scam. I mean, if people want to buy Bitcoin and all sort of stuff, that's cool. But for the most part, most crypto is a scam. If I'm going to waste money, I'm going to waste money on stuff I actually like you know, buying collectibles, buying collectibles, buying books, buying snacks. uh, but if I'm going to invest, I'll take the traditional route and buy uh, buy you know stocks, bonds, mutual funds. So, so yeah, I take the traditional route when it comes to investing, and I want to start buying some real estate, but overseas. Unfortunately, where my second home is, we foreigners can buy real estate but not real property, which means they can buy condos, but they can't buy like single family homes or stuff like that unless it's in the name of someone else who's a local. That's how a lot of people get around that. A lot of foreign investors get around not being able to buy property in Philippines and other places. Meanwhile, the U.S. allows foreign investors to buy property, and I think that's fucked up. They should not be able to buy. Foreign investors should not be able to buy land when they have no legal when they have no they have no attachments here. But yeah, So yeah, I would just get around not being able to buy property overseas by, doing it in my wife's name and letting her do it. But condos I can buy in my own name. Thailand changed their rules actually. So Thailand used to be like the Philippines, where a foreigner could only buy real estate, not real property. So they could only buy condos. They couldn't buy homes. Then Thailand changed their laws so that now foreigners can buy land. So what do I do for a living? I do lead generation and direct marketing. Um, but yeah, anyway. But there's a workaround in the Philippines. G side 8286 how was your day today? It was fine. But yeah, there is a workaround in the Philippines since you can't buy real property. Well, foreigners can't. Is that I think start if they start a business, um, I think they can buy the property under that business. So, say for instance, like a bar, because many foreigners do come to the Philippines and own bars, particularly in red light districts like Angeles City. So, I think that's the workaround is that you can buy property if it's for I think I guess if it's commercial property, a business. Which isn't a bad deal because you could probably end up buying a place and have the land attached to it where you could actually live. Or be your number one advice, life advice for people. I don't have, I don't have it. Like, if people want specific advice, they can send me a super chat. But I don't have any number one life advice for people because there's 8.5 billion people in the world and they all have different needs. So I don't have any specific advice for someone. That would just be too very too vague. But anyway, I'm suffering. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be drinking some water because it's hot here, and I need the water. It's 90. Well, it was like 91 degrees earlier, and it's still in the upper 80s. I'm not used to the heat yet because we've been slogging through cold weather even as early as last week. We were still having colder weather, so not used to this. So I will be taking occasional sips of water. Shinmore says I'm from Norway, by the way. Nice to meet you. Same. Thanks. I don't think if Norway is on my bucket list. No, I mean it's not on my bucket list, but yeah, right now it's just going back to Germany and to the Netherlands and France. Those were like the only ones specifically on my bucket list for Europe. Then I'm open to any other country in Europe, by the way, as well. But um, those three are specifically on my bucket list. I've already been to Germany. I just want to go back and go to the places that I didn't go to before, like Berlin. And I want to go, but I also want to go back to like a few places I have been. And then from there, I can go straight to the Netherlands from Germany. So that's a hop, skip, and a jump on the autobahn. Nope, don't speak German. But most young people speak English, so it's not really a problem. Like even when I was there, 27. Yeah, even when I was there 27 years ago, like the people there, most of the people there spoke some level of English, so it wasn't really a problem. Most people, I mean, you're in Europe, so you know most people in Europe are multilingual. English is sort of the lingua franca of 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 the world. So you know, a lot of places in Europe, most people speak some modicum of English. And like I said, even 27 years ago, most of the people did speak English, so it wasn't really a problem. And definitely the younger people did. So I imagine going there now, almost 30 years later, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Even if I did, I know I've befriended a few people there, so I would probably hit them up and ask them, ask someone to be like my tour guide and you know escort while I'm there. Don't know about France and as far as France and Netherlands, what would I do? I would probably just be bumbling around like a little tourist, but you know, I think they're safe enough that I can do that. Netherlands definitely is safe enough. I could just kind of bungle around. Shinwara says, "Do you easily trust people?" If I can ask, no, I'm very cynical. Plus, it depends. It depends whom and where. It largely depends whom and where and when. Depending on that, I might be more or less trusting. So, say if I'm, here, if I'm like in East Baltimore, probably not gonna be too trusting. But say if I'm in Chiba Prefecture, Japan, probably gonna be very trusting. Two different environments with different types of people. Drink water. You must have a high IQ. I mean, uh, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing to brag about. But yeah. But I do want to get back to Europe. I haven't been there in a while. Again, as I said, almost 30 years, 27 and counting. Want to go back. Plus, this time I'll be going as a civilian, whereas the first time I went while I was still in the service. So that's going to be a difference. But it also allows me a little bit more freedom because I don't have to be with my unit whenever I'm want to make plans. So do you need those glasses or are they for fashion purposes? These are reading glasses. The text on my screen is a little small when it comes to like the mobile stream. So I can read it without the glasses, but I don't feel like squinting at the phone because then it takes longer to read. But there's nothing fashion about these. These are your basic reading glasses, like over the counter reading glasses you can buy right at the pharmacy. They're not prescription, like they're just reading glasses you get at the pharmacy that basically just magnifies things a little bit. I do need to get my eyes checked though. I was supposed to do that like 5 years ago when I haven't done it. Um, but no, these are just your bargain level reading glasses. What's up, Carlton? He says, salute, just a contrarian in chat. Do you like visiting doctors and stuff? No, like who likes visiting doctors? Well, the only people, well, some people do, but those are the people who are like hypochondriacs. I'm not a hypochondriac, so I don't want to visit the doctor unless it's a female doctor who's trying to play doctor. Or a nurse who wants to play nurse. Carlton, you know what I'm saying. The doctor looked like Vanity from Last Dragon. Oh yeah, I'll be there like every week, just making up for shit. Think I think I hit my elbow. My tooth feels loose. I don't like the way my hip feels. Can you massage it for me? Where's the nurse? He said, "Can you explain to me? Explain to you what? If I have to explain to you the joke, is no longer funny. Playing doctor was a euphemism in America for kids who wanted to just be touchy feely. That's the joke. Kids, when they wanted to get to second or third base, they played doctor. That's an American thing, apparently. I never played doctor with a girl though, but we played like I remember we played like I think husband and wife, and it was like this little toy kitchen stand or whatever. Carlton says AI told me that a lot of Gen Z have trouble tying their shoes. Did you know that? I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they just they just seem to fundamentally lack in so many like non-digital skills. Like if it's something digital, they can do it. Like if you want to ask them, do can you make up an AI Luke Skywalker for me? No problem. Um, you ask them to make the bed and put hospital corners on it. Like they're so useless. But the thing is, I can't blame them for being so useless. I have to blame their Gen X parents. Gen By and large, Gen Z are the children of Generation X parents. So I'm gonna blame their I'm gonna blame Generation X on all the problems that Gen Z has. Just like for us, for Gen X, I'm gonna blame our problems on the boomers. Gen X kids were brought up in broken homes, which led to like, a lot of our cultural issues. But Gen Z, their cultural issues come from having Gen X parents. Like if they don't know how to tie their shoes, it's because their parents were a bunch of fucktards that didn't teach them to tie their shoes. Or like some of them have horrible bathroom habits, like my niece and nephew. It's because their parents didn't teach them how to clean up after themselves. I remember my nephew, his my sister was still giving him showers when he was 13. I'm like, what the fuck? So, what do you think of the current generation, brother? Well, the current generation is Gen Alpha, and I have very little knowledge of Gen Alpha because I don't really hang out with people who have kids. So, I mean, one of my friends, he has kids. Well, several of my friends have kids, but I don't really hang out with them when they're with their children. So I don't have much to go on about Gen Alpha. I don't know much about them other than they are coming up, starting to come of age um, in the 2020s. I think the end of I think I think Gen Alpha will end in 2028, and then after 2028, it will be Generation Beta, which is probably just the name they're gonna have until they find a better name. Because that's what, just like millennials used to be called Gen Y or Generation Y until they found out a better name for them, which was millennials. Gen X was originally called the Lost Generation until someone came up with the term Generation X and it stuck. But also, the Lost Generation wouldn't have worked because there's already a generation called the Lost Generation who were born in the late 20th century to um, sorry, in the late 19th century to the beginning of the 20th century, which is from, I guess, around the 1880s to like 1900. So they were the original Lost Generation. So calling Gen X the Lost Generation would have been confusing because that would have been the name of two separate generations. So we were reclassified as Generation X and it's stuck ever since. But because we were called X, then everyone wanted to follow with the next preceding letter because lack of originality. So originally millennials were called Generation Y, and now after millennials you have Generation Z. So that's still stuck, even though millennials are no longer called Generation Y, they still call it Gen Z or Zoomers sometimes. Cardin says they'll later be named the Cook Generation. But every generation seems cooked though. In hindsight, right? Like remember, like we we often have like a lot of praise for the so-called greatest generation. That's the generation that saw that came up in the era of the Great Depression and went to World War II, and some later on to the Korean War. So they're sometimes looked at as the epitome of rugged American individualism and the ones who saved the world during World War II and all of that. But before before they had a chance to shine in World War II, they were seen as they were seen by their predecessors, the Lost Generation, as kind of soft. Carter says the Great Generation will watch Gen Z and about. See, well, that's true, but that's sort of the point I'm getting at. I think that as soft as Gen Z apparently is right now, I think they would adapt. I think if circumstances got tough, they would they would adapt. The ones who didn't just wouldn't be here anymore, right? But the ones who stood the test they would adapt. I think soft times make soft men, right? Tough times make tough men, and I think if you throw Gen Z as entitled and effeminate and soft as they often are, I think if you throw them into a situation where they will have to either adapt or perish, I think they would eventually adapt. So and I don't think that's being optimistic. I think it's just realistic. Because, like I said, the greatest generation before they were tested by World War II, they weren't considered great back in their own era. Before World War II, they wasn't seen as that great. And there's also a habit of every previous generation calling the preceding generation soft. But in Gen Z's case, this is actually true because we've seen a lowering of testosterone levels in the men of their generation, and that might have a lot of that may be due to both that that's obviously going to be an interactionist effect dealing with both the environment and hereditary um, factors. But uh, you know, even though it's very, even though is often the case that middle aged people always yell, "You guys are weak compared to us," because they do that in the military too. Like everyone in the army was like the old army. Everyone who was like came into the service prior to the newer generation of people who came into the service always talk about how soft these people are now compared to how they had it. Oh, you're going to be waving your little stress cards and basic training, all that sort of stuff. Because they even said it when we came in. Oh, you guys gonna have it easy because you're gonna have your little stress cards. Thanks again to Ricky Bobby Dash N3E for the super gift. Appreciate that, brother. But yeah, but in the case, like I said, of Gen Z, there is no longer just middle aged people yelling into the void about their soft compared to us. Where no, there's actual evidence that they possess less testosterone than previous generations. Not only that, we're seeing a reverse Flynn effect where they're for the for the first time in 100 years, they're actually performing more poorly on the IQ test than every previous generation. Before, with the Flynn effect, for almost 100 years, every preceding generation tended to do better on the IQ test than the previous generation because of a stronger emphasis on, analytical reasoning and systematic thinking in both academia and in the business world. Plus, a lot of people, plus a big boost to the Flynn effect was the fact that people were reading books so much so back then. People rarely read nowadays, and their attentions are diverted easily because they're used to looking at short form video content here on online, like TikTok and the IG reels and the Snapchat uh, reels and all that sort of stuff. So with people no longer really sitting there and just reading a book all the way through, some of them can't even watch a movie all the way through without being on their phones, and it's showing its effect. Like they normally, so it was often the case at, after every generation, the psycho the psychometricians who make up these standardized tests will have to renormalize the test. Renormalize, I mean, to um, the the normal distribution curve for the general population would change with each generation. So they had to reflect that in the test so that it remains a valid measure of the construct being tested, which is basically general intelligence. And they would have to renormalize it to make it harder than the previous ones because people were performing better on them. But for the first time in almost 100 years, that they actually had to make it that they actually had to dumb down the test because people were performing more poorly than the previous generations. And this was predicted in the book called The Bell Curve, 31 years ago. So Ricardo says low T, too much soy, skinny jeans, and TikTok. Well, I think the skinny jeans has died out because I know Gen Z people have been mocking skinny jeans for the past 5 years, but it's weird though because they don't like it, but many of them still wear it, and I don't know if the ones who wear it are wearing it in a sort of like cynical way, but most of them, but usually it's the Gen Z making fun of millennials or even Gen X for wearing skinny jeans. Like they, for the most part, don't wear skinny jeans anymore. If you see Gen Z now, the 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 wide the wide leg jeans are coming back. They're bringing back stuff from the 2000s and late 90s. So, like I said, if you see Gen Z, some of them are wearing wide leg jeans again. Um, they're buying vinyl and VHS tapes. I'm not joking. um, but yeah, amongst them, so if you're seeing someone wearing skinny jeans, I guarantee they're probably a millennial. They're probably a millennial and not uh, Gen Z because they pretty much ditched skinny jeans once they started their once they started seeing their parents, people my age, wearing it. So, which I still have mine, but because they still fit, I don't know what to do with them. So I don't know if I should throw them away because they're not in style anymore. I don't know. And when I bought them, I wasn't actually intentionally buying skinny jeans. I didn't actually know they were skinny jeans. Carlton says Gen X was the turn up crew. The government had to make a whole crime bill. They made several. No, I don't say Gen X was the turn up crew. I think we were the what's the word for it? No, I think we were the crash out crew. That's what we weren't the turn up crew. We were the crash out crew. Look, we had the 1988 crack bill, which for the first time made mandatory federal sentencing for a drug offense, but only for crack cocaine and nothing else. Not for powdered cocaine, not for any other hard substance, just crack cocaine. And with the 1994 the 1994 crime bill, uh, they were going after people for violent offenses, particularly in the city, and giving them serious prison time. And although I was largely against it because I saw how it destroyed the black community, it also, I'm not going to lie and say that it did not bring, because it did help bring down crime rates. So it did have that effect. What I didn't what I didn't like about the crime bill is how they marketed it to the general population by basically um, pushing the narrative that all the black men of our generation were super predators and thugs. So that's why I'm so leery today with some of my friends who are so quick to call all of Gen Z black men YNs. And I'm like, you got to give them some grace because we're doing the same things to them that was did to us. Not all of us were thugs. I know I wasn't. Um, Even if I did wear baggy pants because that was the style. Um, Plus, like I said, if someone is a YN, you gotta look at where the hell is the parents at. When I see youth, when I see wayward youth, I'm thinking, how fucked up is the parent that this person is out here wilding out? So, uh, Carlos is a guy told me that it exhausts him to think. Wow, wow. Well, definitely don't want him. Definitely don't want him hurting himself. Don't ask him what like 2 plus 2 is. Might give him like a spasm or something. Shinwa says so. The attention span is being destroyed. Yes, yeah. Well, amongst people who consume a lot of short form video content, yes. Um, just being attached to a monitor all day is going to disrupt your attention. And people who, like I said, in their consumption of social media are mostly digesting short form video content like the TikTok and the IG reels and stuff like that. Yes, it hurts their attention spans, particularly younger people whose brains are literally still forming to the age of 25, right? And actually, the brain never stops developing. It's just that it's fully developed at the age of 25, but it's sort of a it's actually incorrect to say that it stops developing at 25. No, it just reaches full maturity at 25. But the brain has a goes through stages of cognitive development throughout one's entire life. But it reaches full maturity at 25. But until you reach, but in those stages where it's literally like wiring, like in infancy and toddler stages, to put your young child in front of a digital screen, you're doing that kid a disservice. You're going to mess them up for life. And this doesn't just come from me. This comes from the American Psychological Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the American Pediatric Association, and the American Medical Association. All those people will vouch for what I just said. Do not put your kids under the age of 6 in front of a digital screen. It will it will affect their cognitive ability. And even after the age of 6, they should still have limited screen time. So, Carter says Gen Z trying to be copycat Gen X. Yeah, it it must like it must be like every other generation, because like I think so. I think because it started because like I always had this conversation with my friend Marcus. This started with the baby boomers, and it probably was even before then, but it's really when things got fucked up in the 60s and early 70s with the baby boomers. Because like I said, maybe it was the silent generation, I don't know, but all I know is people like uh Thomas, um what's his name, what's that kind of Thomas Sowell, sorry, it's late. So people, economists like Thomas Sowell, always talked about, when he was younger and he lived in Harlem. He's like, yeah, he lived in poverty, but it wasn't a lot of crime. He was like, when it was hot during the summer, people might sleep on their fireplace because they weren't worried about violence or people getting shot, all that sort of stuff. Now he said now across all of Harlem, he said, was there probably someone who may have been getting robbed or shot? He's like, oh, sure, absolutely, I'm sure. He said, I never heard gunshots or anything, but yeah, he said, I'm sure it happened somewhere, but it was just not common enough that there was really a thing to worry about. He said he even asked his cousins who lived in D.C. at the time, mind you, you know, Thomas Sowell is in his 90s, and he's still an active uh, academic, by the way. He literally just finished writing some books a few years ago, and he's in his 90s. But anyway, he said, yeah, I've even asked my cousins, who grew up in the same era I did, who lived in DC. He was like, when you grew up, he said, did you hear gunshots and stuff? And they was like, no, we never heard gunshots. And he was like, again, just like with Harlem, he said, I'm sure somewhere in DC, someone probably shot someone, you know, every once in a blue moon or whatever, but it was not something that happened frequently enough to ever worry about or worry about, hearing. He said, so like he felt safe, you know, on a hot summer night, like sleeping out on the fire escape. But like I said, when you jump to the 60s with the baby boomers, these were the dudes wilding out and had all the little jive talk. Don't jive me, you jive turkey. Talking all that stupid shit, um, and smoking, doing dope and all that sort of dumb stuff. This is also around the same era where the government was encroaching into the inner city, trying to get them on government into government housing programs. But by doing so, they had to kick the man out of the house. So, and drugs became rampant. We know that the government was involved in flooding the inner city with drugs. So, just like I said, all of this BS happened under the baby boomers. The baby boomers were just fucking and sucking, so they ended up having us, the Gen X kids, and or some silent generation had Gen X as well. But between the silent generation and baby boomers, they gave birth to the Gen Xers. Gen Xers largely grew up in broken homes where, for the first time in history, a lot of black families no longer were nuclear families. They were single mother homes. And a lot of Gen X grew up like that. And they passed on their little fucked up origins onto their Generation Z kids. So, Uh, Carlin says Wyans are children of the super predators. LOL. Yeah. The funny thing is, this again, not trying to defend Gen Z. I'm not glazing them or anything like they like to say in their terms, glazing them, right? But again, in defense of Gen Z, like I was telling my friend Marcus, Gen X, we were way more violent than the YNs. We like to talk about how bad the YNs are. We were way more violent than the YNs. The only thing I dislike about the YNs as opposed to Generation X, because we were called, we call them YNs. They used to call us thugs. These little, thugs. Now we call them YNs. The difference between the thugs of our era and the YNs of this era is that the YNs are a little bit more gay. They're a little bit more gay. They paint their fingernails. They put their guns in a man purse. June B, thank you for the love. Thank you for the super gift. But yeah, the Zoomers or Gen Z, they're a little bit more gay, and it kind of makes it hard to feel threatened by someone who has painted fingernails and has their little 22 tucked into a purse. The little man purse or whatever they want to call these. Because I can see if it was a satchel. At least a satchel is manly. Like Indiana Jones in the movies, he wore a satchel. No one thought he was wearing a purse. It looked manly. It was leather. It was rugged. You know, um, he didn't keep his gun in it. He kept his gun. He kept his gun on in a holster. At his on his 3 o'clock on his on his waist. Um, so when Indiana, and that's largely how I used to dress in college. My friend Marcus also could attest to that. I always wore like my leather jacket with my satchel. I didn't have a fedora. That was probably the only thing I was missing was the fedora. But I would have my leather jacket with my satchel, and that was how I dressed throughout most of college, even till today. When when I would go out even to like work, um, I would usually carry my office stuff in my satchel. But that looks manly. That doesn't look effeminate carrying a satchel. But when you got those little man purse things, that looks so gay. Even though you have a gun in it, it still looks gay. I, Shamar says, "How do you know all this? Do you read a lot?" Well, yeah, I read. I read. I read books. I read articles online. Carlin says some of our grandparents remember a black community before a lot of the drugs came in. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like Chris Rock said, he said the hood. He said the hood's never been great. But yeah, I mean, crack definitely the flooding of the cities with crack and now with fentanyl um is pretty bad. But again, the hood is the hood has always had its share of drugs, but it wasn't as bad. Like I said, like they always had like people doing heroin in the city. Like you can look at the Godfather when they was like when they were fighting over whether they should sell drugs or not, because the mob is largely against selling drugs. Um, at least according to Michael Franzese, he would know he was a capo in the Colombo family. But remember that the turning point was when the Godfather finally agreed to sell drugs, but they said they would only sell it in the inner city communities because because he said they don't care if those animals kill themselves getting high. So yeah, the inner city has always been a place where people would go to find illicit drugs, but it wasn't the scourge of the it wasn't the scourge that it was, I think, until like the 60s. That's when it really I think it became rampant, the use of like dope like dope and cocaine really became rampant around the 60s when they really started flooding the inner cities with that stuff. Because it was always there in minor amounts, but it wasn't like it wasn't an epidemic up until like I say like around the 60s. Show Life 1075 says everywhere they shoot guns. I think you're young, bro, because that's that's not the point I'm making. Again, I already said, like Thomas Sowell said, he said, I'm sure somewhere in Harlem someone shot a gun, but he said it was so rare that it was not something they worried about. He was like, back then you could be in Harlem and just sleep out on your fire escape when it's hot at night. He's like, no one would think about it because generally things were pretty safe back then. He's like, yeah, you still had crime here and there, but it wasn't so rampant that you had to be worrying about it. Whereas in a lot of the worst projects throughout the city, say somewhere like again like in Harlem, of the late '80s, early '90s, some parents put their kids to sleep in bathtubs because that was the safest place for them at night, so they wouldn't get sh- killed by a stray bullet. But again, if you grew up in Harlem in the 1930s, that wasn't the case. There was crime, sure, and people had guns, and I'm sure someone shot a gun, but it wasn't. It was too infre. It was not that frequent that it was something you literally had to worry about. Like here in Baltimore, you had to worry about something like a stray bullet. One of a, a coworker um, at my office years ago, he had became one of the youngest managers there. He was a really good dude, and you can tell, he was probably destined to become maybe one of the executives for the company, if not if he didn't eventually move on to something else. He ended up getting killed visiting his mom in a notorious part of Baltimore called Edmondson Village by a stray bullet. He was minding his business at his mom's house and got killed by a stray bullet that came through the house. That is not the sort of thing that would have happened 80 years ago in Harlem. At least, again, not that frequent enough that it would be a serious issue like it is today. Show like the 1970s about drugs. Again, bro, you're saying 1970. When I said Thomas Sowell is the silent generation, he goes back to Harlem in the 1930s. Listen carefully to what I'm saying. Not talking about the 1970s, I'm talking about the 1930s. When I mention the 1970s, I'm talking about the baby boomers. I think you are missing where, the timelines here. When I'm talking about Thomas Sowell, who is of the silent generation, he is literally in his 90s now. He's referring to Harlem back in the 1930s when he was a child, not the 1970s. I've already said in the 1970s everything was already fucked up because of the flooding of drugs into the community, um, the government intervention in the inner cities through housing, through welfare and Section 8 housing, which kicked the man out of the house, and the welfare dissuaded people from working. So, show life says I'm HIV. Yeah. Are you a baby boomer? Dude, what? Okay. Hey, you're a little slow, show life. Carlton Carlton says, do you think the free love movement of the 1960s and 70s was a was beneficial to society? No. I think it kicked in that that whole free love thing increased the level of sexually transmitted infections. Number one, it produced a lot of bastard children for people who were not prepared to be parents. Again, these are the baby boomers who were sexually irresponsible and ended up giving birth to a lot of Gen X kids and depriving them of having a nuclear family, which is the best family unit in which to raise children is the nuclear family. It was definitely not a benefit to society. The whole free love thing was a detriment to society, to which we're still paying the price. Gen X grew up without, and because they grew up without, they didn't realize that their ways were broken, which they pushed on to their Gen Z children. Concept shit, Gen Z ain't peaceful. Y'all live stream while unaliving someone. Right. Um, yeah, that's crazy. He's talking about Gen Z are peaceful and smart. They're not smart. You're literally going through a reverse Flynn effect. I hate when people jump into a live stream and missed everything that was the previous conversation. There, again, you guys are the first generation to which you're performing more poorly on IQ tests than every other previous generation since there has been a record keeping of people taking these tests for the past 100 years. On top of that, you're the males of Generation Z are displaying lower testosterone levels than every previous generation of men. On top of that, many of you fail to have to show basic social. Many of you could benefit from social training skills, and you can tell he's fucking stupid because he called me a baby boomer. Baby boomers are in their fucking 60s and 70s and 80s. They're fucking dumb. Like everything he's saying just kind of just bolsters my point. Carlin says people used to leave their doors unlocked back in the day. Yeah. I mean, I know some places they still do. Like, I remember, I don't know if it's still the case now, but I remember when they were comparing Canada to the US, like in Detroit. So, Detroit, I think, uh, is separated from Canada but via Lake Michigan, right? But right across the lake on the Canadian side, across from Detroit, like they were saying people would still like leave their doors unlocked. Um, it ain't like they here. Because I'm sorry to hear about your coworker. Yeah, man. The messed up thing was I didn't find out till like 4 years later that he died because one of the guys I used to work with told me. He was like, "Yeah, such and such died." I was like, "What? What?" He's like, "Yeah, man, it messed me up." He's like, "That was my little man." I was like, "Yeah, he was cool." I was like, "I know we always used to tease him and call him Russell. Uh, what's the guy that married Sierra's Russell? Um, whatever his name is." But we used to always joke calling him Russell. But he was cool. I never had any. I have one bad thing that I could ever say about the dude. I mean, other than he smashed some of them hoes at the office, but they were all smashing them hoes at the office. I was the only one that didn't smash a hoe at the office. Although I almost smashed this one Filipina that was at the office. But anyway, but yeah, I was never interested in smashing anyone at the office. One, because I wasn't attracted to any of them, but two, just because I didn't want to eat and shit where I eating shit at the same in the same place. But other than that, I couldn't say anything bad about the dude. And it's like that's crazy that that's all too common occurrence. Is people can just get killed minding their own business. Because usually the people who die in gun violence are usually people who are, in that life. But that's not always the case. Innocent people die from gun violence too in the city who may be completely innocent. It's just they're in a bad place at a bad time when a bad thing happens. So sorry, I'm back. Sorry, I'm back. Yeah, but yeah, my boy Russell Wilson though. Rest in peace to him, man. That's messed up. Like, and then on top of that, he was visiting his mom. Like, it wasn't even his own crib. He was visiting his mom. Because, a lot of us, have family that still live in the hood. We go out to meet them, and then you meet tragedy. This makes you want to not like reach out to your kinfolk who still live in bad neighborhoods because you don't want to like catch an L just visiting family. And Edmondson Village has never been a nice place. Although there are different parts of Emerson Village, like people were reminding me, it's like, well, this part of Emerson Village is actually nice. This part isn't. That's largely a big problem of Baltimore neighborhoods. Is that so? It's very much like a patchwork. So like in other cities, like you'll have like whole regions that are either good, bad, or whatever. So you'd be like, yeah, don't go to South Side Chicago or whatever, or you know, but the west side of Chicago is, it's nice or whatever. But no, it's like a patchwork, like within Baltimore. Like you could be in this section of town and it's good, and then 2 blocks over is bad, and then vice versa. And it's like th- this is what makes not living. This is what makes living in Baltimore not worth it for me because I know there's a lot of little, you know, professional people who do live in this city. It's not worth it to me. Because even living in a good neighborhood, you still gotta get, you still gotta travel through the bad spots. This is not worth it. Especially for me as a runner. Like, how am I gonna run unless I like live near a park, um, like Patterson Park or something like that, where I can just run around the park safely. But it's like I can't be a distance runner. And well, the Baltimore running man, he does. He somehow has been able to do it, but he has been robbed before though. Baltimore running man. Uh, but it's like, yeah, I don't want to be somewhere where I have to be on my P's and Q's when I go out in the morning. Like, uh, Carl says a girl in Memphis was hit with a stray and she had just got a full ride scholarship to an Ivy League school. Shaking my head. Yeah, it's messed up, man. That's and these sort of things happen not frequently, but they happen often enough that it makes you not want to be around your own folks. This is why when most black people get money, they leave the hood. And most people will understand why. Because when you do try to come back to the hood like Nipsey Hussle, what happens to you? What happened to Nipsey Hussle, right? Because it's children and people with bright futures tend to get hit with strays. It's sad. Yeah, it's like it. Even out here in the suburbs, I sometimes worry because I have some really ratchet neighbors. So every time they yelling and doing some dumb shit, I'm thinking something's gonna pop off. And then I don't know if you remember me talking about this last year on the stream, but I remember there were actual gunshots in front of my house. That was because the neighbor across the street was being robbed by someone. Like he was literally in his car chilling with his girlfriend on his phone, and the guys didn't know he was in his car, so they they were trying to break into his car and steal stuff. He's in there, so they end up with a fight with him. His friend arrives on the scene as he's tussling with these 2 guys and lets off 2 gunshots. And I'm like, what the hell? So as soon as I heard those 2 gunshots, I immediately hit the floor. So I'm like, oh hell no. I said I got to worry about stray bullets in the suburbs now. But see, this is the suburbs right outside of the city. So niggas have a tendency to move right onto the county line, right across from the city. This is why people move even farther out from the city. Like they don't just move to the suburbs; they move out towards the rural areas to get away from niggas. Like the best, I was telling my friend this. Like the best way to get away from niggas when you leave the hood is to go somewhere where there's no public transportation. If there's no public transportation, niggas can't get there, by and large. And I know in the South it's different because there's like a car culture, so everyone has a fucking car. In the East Coast, no, not everyone has a car. A lot of the people have a lot of the brokies are on a bus, so they keep. And my friend even said, he said, yeah, where I live, he's like, if I had moved like, he said if I had moved like one block farther down the street, it was past the bus. That was past the last bus stop. He said it would have been better. I'm like, yeah, I would have, because when you live near a bus stop, even if you live in a nice place, niggas can get there. I'm sorry. I know that sounds mean, but it's true. Conscious thing, he got robbed while exercising. Said, yeah, and he's a local celebrity in Baltimore, the Baltimore Running Man. He did end up getting a sponsorship by Nike. I don't know if he still has it, but yeah, he got robbed. Someone tried to accuse him of some lying bitch tried to lie and say he tried to assault her. Like that man goes out running. He is not minding any. He is not like worrying about anyone, trying to hurt anyone. This man does his 10 to 13 miles a day, minding his business. Because I think he used to be like homeless or something. He just started running because his ninjas love public transportation. So I mean, it's nothing wrong with public transportation in itself, but but you get the connotation that that I'm implying here is that wherever there's public transportation, you'll find niggas because you know they come from lower income communities, so that's often how they get around. This is why even in very nice places like Columbia Mall, you'll find niggas because there's now transportation that can run you all the way from Baltimore City all the way out to Howard County, Maryland to Columbia Mall. That's how you get niggas out there. That and the fact that a lot of the local malls, have been failing. So everyone goes to the two major malls in the area, either Towson Town Center on the east side of Baltimore, or Columbia Mall way out uh, the west side of Baltimore, both in the suburbs. But like Towson is easy to get to. That's why it's more niggas there at Towson Town Center than Columbia. Columbia is like 40 minutes outside of the city, but it's still relatively easy to get to with public transportation. So niggas come there too, messing things up. For instance, do people in Baltimore randomly sock people like they do in New York? I imagine Baltimoreans don't play that because the consequences would be severe. Yeah, there was people doing it. It was the Hawaiians doing that. I remember, I'm talking about 10 years ago when they was doing that. I forgot what they call it when they hitting people in the back of the head. Yeah, they were doing that here too. Yeah, it was an occurrence. I was I was waiting for someone to try some shit like that to me. I keep a blade on me, several really. Yeah, soon, man. Mm-mm. It'd have been chitty chitty bang bang if that happened to me, or if someone tried to attack like a family member or something. They were doing that crazy stuff. Plus, with gangs out here, sometimes people might get jumped because um, that's some gang recruits initiation is that they gotta because I think the BGF do that dumb shit. I don't know about the little Crips and Bloods or Pyru or whatever, but the BGF, I think um, their way of making someone a member, if they don't jump them in, is that they have to go randomly assault someone. I could be wrong. I'm not in that life, so don't quote me on that because I might be saying the wrong things. I want people who's actually in that life saying, actually, you're wrong. It's like, all right, cool. But I know there are some of the gangs that do random stuff like that. That will randomly assault or even kill someone to make it as a member into like those groups. And like I said, I'm thinking particularly of like the BGF and some of the little other groups out there. But anyway, shoot, it's getting late. I'm about to go, Carlton. I'm gonna chop it up with you guys later. I think I'm gonna make a sandwich before I go to bed. Plus, it's hot. You can tell. You can look at it. It's hot. I got the fan on all the way. Thank you, Ricky. Um, Ricky dropped another super gift on me. Thank you, Ricky Bobby dash N3E. Appreciate that a lot, brother. Appreciate the love. But yeah, guys, if anyone else want to contribute, like Ricky Bobby, feel free. Like I said, if you got a question you want to ask me, go right on ahead. Make sure I show. Yeah, I forgot the spotlight. I mean to oh snap. Uh, okay, I think I got all of them. So just been listening. That's about it, brother. I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, it's ask me anything format. So like I said, people want to ask me questions, go right on ahead. Because usually when I have a given topic, I will stick just to the topic. But on ask me anything day, I take random questions. Um, and so yeah, and the funny thing is with ask me anything format, you never know where the conversation is going to steer because I don't steer it in any particular direction on Ask Me Anything days. Now when I have a given topic, I may stray once, I may stray here and there, but I will bring it back to the given topic. But on Ask Me Anything format, this is just I let people give me their freely associating ideas. But anyway, I will be back tomorrow. Hopefully, it won't be like this hot tomorrow because it got like I said, it got up to 91 degrees in Baltimore, at least where I am. So it might have been hotter in some places or less hot in others. But anyway, I'm out, guys. Appreciate you for rocking with me. Thank you again, Ricky. Um, I'm out, folks. If anyone sees Miss Needle, tell her hi. Tell her stop on by. Till then, I'm out. Peace. Thank you.